Drive south from Bulawayo, and the flat, dry scrub of the southern African bushveld stretches out in a predictable, uniform sheet, until suddenly it shatters into a fortress of massive, smooth granite domes. 2 billion years ago, a colossal plume of magma forced its way toward the Earth's surface. It never quite broke through. Instead, it pooled and hardened beneath the crust into a massive block of granite known as a batholith. Over millions of years, erosion stripped away the softer topsoil, exposing that deep granite. The wind and rain sculpted it into smooth peaks called whaleback dwalas and precarious, gravity-defying balancing rocks. Today, this tight 3,100 square kilometer zone is an extreme anomaly. It holds the world's highest density of leopards, conceals over 3,000 ancient archaeological sites, and guards a highly contested colonial grave. Understanding these hills requires mapping them from the bottom up, tracing the connection between the flooded valleys, the rock-sheltered caves, and the sacred summits. At the lowest elevation, granite domes act as massive funnels. Rainwater sheds off, pooling in narrow ravines to form flooded valleys. Trapped between stone walls, this creates a concentrated burst of life, where hundreds of tree and fungi species thrive. That dense vegetation provides endless cover and food for an exploding population of rock hyraxes. Confined to these ravines, they become an easily accessible, hyper-concentrated food source. This specific predator-prey bottleneck is why Matobo sustains the highest concentration of leopards and breeding black eagles in the world. The valley's natural stone fortifications also make it highly defensible. Park authorities designated a section of these lower elevations as an intensive protection zone, heavily guarded to harbor translocated megafauna. White and black rhinos patrolled the thick vegetation of the protected valley floor like living tanks. These lower elevations operate as a highly efficient biological machine. Every predator and prey relationship here is dictated entirely by how the ancient granite captures and funnels water. Moving up the granite faces, the sheer cliffs fracture into deep crevices and natural rock shelters that have protected human life for hundreds of generations. The geology provided such reliable, ready-made protection from the elements that archaeological digs in these caves have unearthed stone tools and hearths dating back 300,000 years. Over the last 2 millennia, the Sand People used these walls as a canvas, mixing clay, sap, and animal fat to document their world. Over 3,000 registered rock art sites across the mid-elevations depict highly detailed friezes of giraffes, warthogs, and hunters, painted directly onto the stone. Because the granite protected these pigments from the elements for millennia, the hills now preserve an unbroken record of 3,000 registered sites, documenting centuries of life in a single sprawling gallery. At the summits, the character of the landscape changes again. The stark, towering grandeur of these highest peaks made them hallowed ground for the Shona and Ndebele people, and the headquarters for the spiritual oracle known as the Mlimo. In 1896, that spiritual center became a tactical stronghold. During the Second Matabele War, indigenous forces used the impenetrable high ground of the Matobo Hills to fight off encroaching white settlers. The conflict hinged on a targeted assassination. An American scout named Frederick Russell Burnham infiltrated one of the high caves and killed the Mlimo, fracturing the indigenous resistance. Capitalizing on the chaos, British imperialist Cecil Rhodes walked unarmed into the Ndebele Mon fortress to negotiate their surrender. The terrain had forced a standoff that ended in colonial control. Rhodes was so captivated by the peaks that he requested to be buried on the exact summit he called World's View, known locally as the Hill of the Spirits. Today, colonial conquerors and their monuments remain permanently cemented atop an indigenous sacred mount. It is a point of immense political friction in modern Zimbabwe. The sheer shape of the Matobo Rock determined where water would flow, where humans would shelter, and eventually where empires would clash. These hills haven't just survived for 2 billion years, they have actively dictated the terms of life for everything living within them.